I'd like to welcome everyone today to our webinar. It's great to have you here. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. We will be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you look at the bottom or top, I'm sorry, I don't know what everyone's screen looks like, but there should be a Q&A feature under the chat. If you'd like to plug in your questions, you can go ahead and type them in anytime. We will get to them towards the end of the webinar. Today, we are joined by Michael Duffy of Grasp Technologies. He is the VP of Product and Innovation. We are also joined by David Kraft, Senior Relationship Manager at WEX, and Julia Brazier at Director of Operations at Frontier Lodging. So yeah, take it away, Mike.
All right. Well, thank you, Peter, and thanks everyone for joining. As Peter says, I'm Mike Duffy, VP of Product at Grasp. I'm thrilled to be joined today with Julia from Frontier and David Kraft from WEX. We're going to explore how virtual cards have transformed Frontier's hotel payment processes and how the multi-currency solutions are adding value. Let's see. David is a senior relationship manager with WEX, and for those of you that may not be familiar with WEX, they are actually a pioneer in the virtual card space. I believe perhaps the largest virtual card issuer in travel. They used to go also by the name Right Express, and I've been collaborating with David for several years, integrating WEX virtual cards into the travel reservation systems. And then Julia has been with Frontier since I believe 2018, and currently serves as the Director of Operations. 35 years of experience in travel. Julia has led teams across both public and private sectors. At Frontier, Julia oversees the reservations projects, folio teams, dedicated to addressing the challenges of enhancing the booking experience, both for clients and associates. And I believe Frontier has been using the virtual cards for roughly 8 years, and bookings are made for both Canadian and US hotels, and sometimes hotels in very remote areas. So let's talk about that payment journey, with Julia and Frontier. And so Julia, I'll just, kind of kick it off. Thank you, for participating in the webinar. Can you tell us, anything more on Frontier, that maybe I didn't, cover and your role there?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. So with the virtual pay provider, I believe we've been using it for about 8 years when a lot of people didn't actually know what virtual pay was, and there was a lot of explaining, and there was a lot of work with our frontline team kind of trying to get these hotels to understand what it was and how to work with us and the security of it, because we were finding a lot of our travelers were a lot of blue collar travelers that just didn't have a credit card, or maybe their credit card was just had a very low limit, and this really impacted their ability to go and buy lunch the next day if the hotel was pre-authing. So we just tried to integrate it with more and more clients. And even the clients, we had some clients that really wanted to do their own company cards, but what we were finding is cards were constantly getting declined and compromised, so that we would have to, scramble last minute and get some alternate form of payment. So we did transition quite a few of our clients over to WEX using Grasp, and it was amazing. The client wasn't very low impact in regards to, them being able to check in without supplying a credit card. Hotel knew that they were going to get paid, so there was that, security on their end as well as the guest and us. So everyone was, finding a really smooth flow, and for a company that really supported its growth and the ability to go out and do sales, to say that we had this unique way of taking care of everything. I mean, we go to reconcile that folio. It takes us, a quarter of the time, because all the charges are on that one card for that one stay, and it's clean. Close the card and off you go. So very, very smooth process for our guests and hotel alike.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so, I heard, some of the key challenges, before the virtual cards were present, were reconciliation and providing cards to folks that may not have had a credit card. Were there any other challenges, faced prior to, the virtual cards?
I think the folio collection, the reconciliation, and that support on the finance side was probably one of the biggest things. And, the traveler being able to check in without any issues is probably a big sell.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, trying to think what else was a big, just adoptability. It was really clean.
Well, and then actually you mentioned, check in without any issues, and that I think is a topic that comes up often, in the virtual card space. And I think perhaps more so, a number of years ago, and maybe less so now. Can you tell me anything on that, on how, if that was a problem, or how that got addressed, if it was a problem?
So we have the ability to, with Grasp and Wex, to make our cards worth. Actually, they have a buffer so that they can charge that pre-auth on that card, so the guests don't have to provide a credit card, because most hotels do want to do a pre-authorization, kind of blocks up the card for the charges, and putting that buffer on the cards, allowing for the charges, all charges to be done, really supported in that check-in, because some of our clients only want room and tax. They
Mm-hmm.
don't want, all the charges on the card, but having that virtual card and saying, hey, you can do a pre-auth on this, don't worry about it. It just opened everything up. We're just finding our clients had a much, much smoother check-in, opposed to, having to, and not only that, inadvertently, the more cards you give to a hotel, there you're going to have a lot more issues, because of course the card you provide upon check-in, because you need to do a pre-auth, sometimes will get charged instead of the card that needs to get charged. So then there's a constant back and forth going with the hotel. Hey, you've charged your own card, can you please reverse it and charge this card? And having the cards worth, and changing that language on the cards to allow all charges, made a lot of things much more streamlined.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I hear, from the industry that, the hotels, when they receive a reservation in the card, even if it's like states it's for $500, for instance, as an example, they sometimes have the hotels have some bad behavior where they may try to attempt to charge for more than that, in which case it could be a decline. So, having that sort of configuration, like you just mentioned, I think does help support the acceptance of that.
Yeah, it is so much easier for everyone. And it gives that, I think, as much as we always talk about, our cars being declined and, compromised, I think the hotels have their own struggles with, making sure they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
So we find that hotels are more than happy to work with us simply because of the virtual pay.
Gotcha. So with that, when you say they work with us, so does that mean that there was some communication, for some properties that may have struggled with that, or how did that kind of come to be, or can you describe that a little further?
So hopefully I understood your question right. So for us, when we go to RFP, our supplier team goes to RFP and work with hotels, them knowing that they're going to get paid when that guest is checking out is huge for them, because sometimes they do the direct bill and sometimes they do all these other ways, and they're not getting paid for between 60 and 90 days for that hotel stay upon checkout. And this way they're getting paid like at checkout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just a big, I think it's really a big win for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. And so it sounds like it's a win for the hotels. How has it impacted, the finance and operations with your own teams?
So with the folio team is funny because, and the finance side as well, because we used to use our corporate visa, so we had a corporate card that we used for all our stays, and the reconciliation piece was painful at best. So they would have to wait for a statement. They wouldn't be able to see the charges live, and so it was delayed. And And when I say that it was delayed, we don't bill our clients until we verify charges. So sometimes a hotel, they'll send you a folio, and the folio won't actually reflect what the charges were. It, sometimes,
Oh,
yes, it's not like it's the same. Sometimes the POS system will charge more, but the folio will come out like this. And so there was, and with that said as well, trying to go back to a hotel a month later and saying, hey, looks like you overcharged us. Good luck. You know,
yeah.
today, and hey, it looks like you guys charged us a little bit too much today. The guy checked out, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the situation may be, it's just so much easier to deal with it right away and clean it up. And then we can go and bill our clients. So with the finance side, we're not so delayed in billing and then getting paid, because of course it's WEX, so that we're paying for it when it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it sounds like you have some tips perhaps for anyone that is, looking to adopt virtual cards. It sounds like what I've heard there earlier is like there's some configurations. If any advice you could give for anyone that's looking to adopt virtual cards.
I think really communicating with the client in what they need is critical. And then communicating with WEX and GRASP on how to make it happen. Because I have to say, there was a lot of things like, okay, this is what we need. Hey, GRASP, hey, WEX. I know there were so many conversations, with David, and we dealt a lot with Eric, and, how can we make this happen? And honestly, have to say GRASP has been a huge powerhouse in that support and getting it to work with WEX, and having it just work together. Like that hotel piece, having all charges is really important. Now we have some clients that don't want all charges on their card, but then we just educate them to say, hey, when your traveler checks in, if they have any incidentals, make sure they're separating it, because that's really at the traveler's level. And if we can make sure that all charges go on the cards, it just supports that check-in process, and reduces that error margin for the hotel to charge the wrong card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's good. Thank you for that. And I know that you book hotels and throughout Canada, US, and etc. And you have in those two currencies as well, and then also in some remote areas. Having the multi-currency, how has that impacted operations, or does that help serve clients differently in the two countries?
Well, I think the finance side is the best side, as well as the folio collection, because sometimes when you're charging a Canadian card, US currency, you're not seeing the right, you're not seeing,
Mm,
you're seeing it converted. And so you never, so what are you charging the guest? The US price, the Canadian price? And then you're always going to be losing on the conversions piece as well. It's never a win. And so a lot of our clients have US entities that work within the US and want to be billed in US. So that was a huge support for sure. Yeah.
great, great. And that seems like a nice segue to bring David in as well here. David, do you want to add some color on some of that
Sure.
functionality?
Absolutely. And you guys made some great call outs with regard to the benefits on the hotel side as well, because when they're getting paid in the currency they want to get paid in as well, it helps keep everything same for same. So with you all working with clients in the US using a USD card versus clients in Canada using a CAD card. So when you're paying merchants in their local currency, when services are performed, like the hotel stay in this case, they're getting exactly what they expect, when the services are done. So when that person checks out. It does help them avoid some extra fees on the back end as well. If they were accepting a USD card in Canada, for instance, they would also be paying a higher fee for the acquiring of those funds. And just like for Frontier, if you were using a USD card in Canada, there would be foreign exchange fees that you would have to pay on top of that.
Yeah.
Now, you also made a good call out with the fluctuations in exchange rates. And if you were having to manage those on your side, putting buffers on it, continuing to update the card, let's say you have a reservation, in a month out, the rates might change in that amount of time, and you would need to update the card amount to reflect that. So there's kind of some operational benefits as well as some cost benefits that help you avoid additional fees there. For companies based in the US, we do have a number of other currencies as well. I know you all are using the Canadian and USD dollars. We've got, Mexican pesos, euros, British pounds. We've got a number of others. And it is kind of important to call out WEX is a global issuer. So we issue from Canada, we issue from the US, we issue within Europe and within APAC specifically. So we're able to work with you all in the regions where you're working and where you're paying your suppliers, which, as we mentioned, is helpful on both sides.
Great. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions on that from your side, David?
Can't say there is, yeah.
All good. Julia, just before we go back, we'll ask some questions from the audience. I was just wanted to hear from you, kind of firsthand. And I think a lot of folks wonder on the acceptance of the cards, and there's, I think, perceptions that the big chains will accept the cards perhaps more so than either remote or mom and pop shops, hotels or boutique hotels. Can you tell us a little bit of that? Because I know you live it, your folks live that. They're booking those types of properties all the time.
Yeah, so and that's a good point too, because funny enough, we do so many remote small mom and pop properties, and it's just the language, because sometimes we'll have our frontline staff and go like, yeah, they won't accept virtual card. And so I pick up the phone and I explain to them that it's just a MasterCard, and what is it that they can't use, and once you explain to them it's a one-time use MasterCard in that client's name or in the guest's name, it's just secure. They're like, oh yeah, no, we can use that. I'm like, perfect. I think it's just about us helping them understand what it is. It's not this magical thing. And to be fair, at the beginning, it was tough. It was a tough push with the hotels 8 years ago. But now it's kind of like, if they know it's a one-time use MasterCard in that person's name, it really gives them that peace or that kind of security that they need, instead of giving them this huge song and dance of what it is. They don't need to know that. All they need to know is a one-time use credit card in that guest's name, and they seem to be okay.
Yeah. And I think you touched on it earlier too, and it's important to look at it from the lens of the hotel. They want to get paid securely. So that little bit of understanding, that little bit of communication that you've provided to them, that certainly goes a long way, in helping bridge that.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think Peter, if might be a good time to switch over to the audience and see if there's any questions coming in.
Yeah, we have a couple. Let me take a look. All right, so let's start from the top. Is there a way to trigger virtual card issuance or hotel payment workflows directly from GDS commands or PNR fields without relying on mid-office integration?
I can take that one. So yes, there is. So there's multiple workflows available. We do have those abilities too within the mid office, and that has some people prefer that. Some people prefer to have either a web service that goes directly into some sort of script or other platform within the reservation system. Another one also quite popular is directly to the profile, so it can be pushed to a traveler's profile or even to a traveler ranger's profile. And that's, I think, more beneficial, I think, more in an OBT perspective. So that can certainly be done. And the benefit there too is that it could be used for instant purchase bookings, where something like an NDC booking, for instance, which may need to have a card rather than going through a GDS queue.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Okay, next one. Can WEX's virtual card solution be configured to draw funds from an existing American Express credit line instead of requiring a new funding setup?
Say no. Right off the bat, WEX Bank does our own underwriting based on financial statements from the company. We do have options around accepting security deposits. We do have some flexible funding options as well that would allow you to deposit funds and draw down against them. But we wouldn't necessarily be able to leverage another line of credit.
Gotcha. Thank you, David.
Mhm.
If a client says we don't and won't integrate our mid-office or back office, do you have an out-of-the-box hotel payment flow that can still work? And if so, what are its limitations?
I wouldn't say it's there's limitations, just sort of configuration changes. And so and I'm not sure when referring to client if that's referring to a corporate client or to the the TMC. I'm assuming it might be the TMC, but there's a couple of different ways for the cards to be pushed into the workflow. That could be through a mid-office, as mentioned earlier, or it could be pushed into directly into the GDS or into an online booking tool or into a profile. And so for any of those tools, the only thing that would be necessary would be to have credentials access, but more or less, in order to grant the access for us to push those cards in there. So we can do that for a number of workflows, and it really depends on what you and your client prefer. And what configuration. But those are the sort of the options that can be pushed to many different platforms.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Next one up. Are these card issues solely as MasterCard, or is there a Visa or other option?
There are other options, Visa being the primary other option, yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. What is the success rate for hotel folio reconciliation? And are we able to incorporate cost codes to easily facilitate the reconciliation?
Ooh, that's a doozy. That's a good one. Well, Julia, I'll ask you firsthand because I know you're doing some of that today.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable taking
Sure.
a stab at that question?
So how we can, it's so much easier to reconcile because with the grasp and with WEX, you can add parameters and have, so if it's a cost code you need, you can add that in and it will come up on a report, or it'll come up on that reconciliation page when you look at all the charges, and very easy to cleanly define what was charged. And yeah, absolutely, we do that. So I can say we can run a report even with grasp and with WEX on those parameters.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. And last one up. Were
Oh,
there any
yeah.
changes to traveler experience?
Well, I guess Julia, maybe could you take that one as well?
Any changes to the traveler experience? I would say it is a positive experience in the sense that your travelers aren't going to require handing over a credit card if they don't have one. The process is streamlined. We send payment to the hotel, and Grasp has integrated that it actually sends or lets some of these hoteliers know that it's a virtual card, and it just goes right into the system so cleanly. Yeah. So super good experience for the travelers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia.
Mhm.
I think that is it for the questions. If anyone else has, oh wait, nope, we have one more. Okay, so if you have a cash account that you want to back up with the agency card, how hard is it to set up for the agency with their cards?
So I just understand the question. Maybe David, you already if you feel comfortable on that and got it, but I think the understanding is that they're just trying to ask, I guess, in the agency to have the line of credit, perhaps.
Or
Is that
perhaps they're a pass through, perhaps they're getting paid ahead of time from their client and they, like a pre-funded solution essentially is what it sounds like. If there's an ability to deposit cash and then use that to issue cards. And I would say basically, yes, that is, there is a solution there. But there's so many options when it comes to funding a credit line within WEX or being underwritten with unsecured credit. It's definitely a case by case, thing that we'd want to talk through.
Yeah. So and I think it's I think sometimes, the corporate may have credit, and then there's other times where, the agency or the TMC could have the credit, and then the virtual cards are issued from there. The one caveat I'll state on, those cards on if it was air, I think, both ARC and IATA have a little bit of a rule for agency cards being applied for airline tickets. And I think that might be just a bit of a nuance. I think the primary use case is hotel, which there are no issues there. But I think on some air bookings, there might be some rules around that with ARC and IATA. Good question.
Yes, and the asker did confirm that yes, that's exactly what they were asking.
Okay.
Uh, got another one coming in.
Oh, okay.
Is the business model that bookings are made from the TMC and then queued to the hotels via Grasp? What is the hotel acceptance of virtual cards? And is this different by region?
So yeah, so the workflow could be for multiple different ways. So it could be queued to us, in which case that could be driven from a mid office or another product. It could be pushed to a profile in which there's no queuing of that booking needed. It's just automatically provided in the segment. And the nice thing with that workflow as well is that instead of queuing the queuing piece, sometimes there'll be a ghost card that's put in as a hotel reservation, and then there's a swap within this segment with the virtual card. With the profile workflow and a couple of others, having the virtual card up front is what really nice is that virtual card that's created is the only one that's in the segment. There's no swap within the reservation, and as a result, downstream, the hotel only sees that virtual card. They don't see any other. So that workflow works extremely well. And so that's certainly one to consider. But really, it's up to the TMC agency and the corporate client on what they would prefer in terms of the workflow.
Thank you so much, Mike. Two more. Is there a roadmap for virtual payments for car rental?
Car rental. Okay. So yes, it is on the list, and it's not so much a technical issue. We've actually currently have car service today, and that's actually going through an OBT as well. So we do have that a live client, and that integration is working and working very well. Car rental, to answer your question, today, I don't believe anyone is doing that, and partially because car rental companies have a little bit of hesitation when it comes to virtual card, and their concerns are somewhat valid, and I think it's just a configuration in the end that will get through all of this. But the reason they're hesitant is that unlike a hotel or air, the charges you occur at that point in time, like say a checkout, they don't change. They may have, I don't know if there might be some sort of adjustment, perhaps, I don't know, a few days or a couple of weeks later. But with car rental, there could be charges a month, even 6 to 8 weeks later. That could be a toll charge of some sort, if it's highway or a bridge. It could be some sort of infraction that would happen on the card. And so the car rental companies do want to have the cards open for a longer time. And again, that could be just a configuration that we do. But we do want to work with the car rental companies to ensure that experience for the traveler is going to be smooth. So I can't say with 100% certainty of the acceptance of cards at this time. It's a work in progress, unfortunately.
Thank you, Mike. Last one. Have you had any experience integrating into a tree's OBT, and how well does it work so far?
Yeah, the Atris OBT, I'd have to double check where that one in terms of integration. We do have integrations with a number of other OBTs, but the Atris one, I'd have to get back to you on that one. So when we do send the recording out, I can answer that question, whether or not that one is complete, and if not, where that would sit on the roadmap.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. I took a chance with the pronunciation of Atris, and I got it.
That's okay.
It's a big shot in the dark. Thank you for everyone who joined. If you guys have any other questions, if you think of a question later today, next week, next month, if you look down at the bottom left of the screen, those are the people to bother with their emails. Please feel free to send in any questions that you have. Thank you, Mike, Julia, and David, for a great conversation, guys.
And actually, I'll just pause for one moment. I see one question just came in, so
Oh, yeah.
I'll take a stab at it while we do have a minute or two. So combination, the question is, couldn't it be a combination of virtual card and personal card? And this is referring to the rental car. Main charges from a rental car company could go on the virtual. Any additional charges could go personal card and expense. And I think that's a great idea. I think it's one that can be brought up to the rental car companies, and we'll mention that. And we can, look to see if they can accept the virtual cards. But I think that's an excellent idea. And then there's another one just came in as well. Which OBTs are we integrated with? I can send that out as well in the email that when we send the recording, so everyone has a complete list.
Awesome. It's wonderful to see all the questions and curiosities coming in. It's always great to see.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining, and David and Julia for participating. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Have a great rest of your day, evening, afternoon.
You too.
All right.
Y'all too.
So.
All right,
Cheers.
bye.